Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I am a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. This is a video about the Pisces full moon, September 2019 for twin flames. Um, hmm. This is the third time I'm trying to record this. That rarely happens. So I'm trusting that there is something that's about to come out that didn't come out in the first two that apparently needed to get said. But let's begin at the beginning, my frustration aside. The overarching energy for this full moon is an energy of healing, with Pisces and Neptune talking. The full moon is in Pisces, Neptune's in its home sign. The full moon happening so close to Neptune. There's a real opportunity for emotional healing during this full moon if we're willing to take it. This full moon is illuminating a couple of things for us. With so much discernment energy happening in Virgo, the same way there was at the new moon just a couple of weeks ago, while the new moon really illuminated, what it is we might like to begin, the full moon is illuminating what it is that's over and done with. The full moon is illuminating specifically a bit of a gap and an aha moment recognition of the gap between where we are and where we'd like to be as twin flames. And this is happening both for the divine masculine and the divine feminine at the same time. Both the divine masculine, Jupiter here, and the divine feminine, Juno here, sit in mutable signs, almost square to one another by about 7 degrees off. They'll be in a perfect square sometime in the next week-ish. Squares are conversations of tension, and the tension of a square forces us to have a hard look at how where something is at is not where we want it to be, and what compromises or changes in this case need to be made in order to arrive at the place we want things to be. Mutable signs are significant in this chart. The mutable placements in this chart, number 10, as you see here on the left side of the chart patterns, there are 10 mutable placements here, according to the software. But when you have so much energy in a mutable sign, mutable signs being about change and transformation, cardinal signs being about beginnings, fixed signs being about things staying the same, continuity and sustainability. Mutable signs occur at the end of every season when it's time to change into the next season. And with this full moon illuminating the change in Virgo, specifically, where the divine feminine sits, which is discernment, and the change in Sagittarius, which is where the divine masculine sits, which is all about changes in our recognition of the truth and our hopes and ideals. What this full moon is kind of showing both twins at the same time is well, actually, it's just one thing, because the North Node here in Cancer is telling us what that is. It's showing both twins the truth of what they need to change to get back in emotional integrity with themselves. Now, for some twins, this is going to be very, very indicative of, wow, I have really compromised myself in an area of work or family or relationships, or just in regards to myself and how I'm dealing with myself. Those four areas have been highlighted all year long for everyone with Saturn's placement, Saturn being restoration of integrity in Capricorn. Saturn has been touching each of the signs that represent those areas. And now, with the position of both the divine feminine and the divine masculine in these mutable signs and a conversation of tension to one another, there's something about the connection that has opened all of our eyes to what we need to change to come back to being in emotional integrity with ourselves. Now, what's interesting about this is that this particular chart is really showing us that we get a choice when it comes to that change. And the choices are a little bit different for the divine masculine and the divine feminine, but they amount to essentially the same thing, which is that we have the choice of whether or not we are going to beat ourselves up for the truth that's being revealed right now in the gap between where we are and where we prefer we could be, think we should be, could, would, should, all the favorite words. Just kidding. They're really not. There's a gap between where we want to be and where we are. And the choice presented to us is fall in the gap with self-blame, self-criticism, harsh words. That's a total option here with Mercury and Venus at the very final discernment degree of a discerning sign, Virgo, with Pluto kind of almost shining a light, Pluto being life, death, and rebirth cycles. Pluto can be a little harsh sometimes, shining a light down to those two things. We could get into a pattern of deep self-blame here. The other thing we could do is ignore the gap. We could completely go, gap? What gap? I don't see any gap. God's got this. Because Mars, sitting across from Neptune under the light of this full moon, has the capacity to dissipate our motivation to make change. And Jupiter, squaring Neptune, has the capacity to allow our hopes, faiths, and beliefs and wishes to run away with us and allow us to believe that we don't need to make any changes in order for things to work out. So, the interesting thing about this energy isn't that, there's this loudness about things that we want that we're not currently experiencing. The interesting thing about this energy is that spelled out so clearly in the chart is the discipline to recognize the changes. That's Saturn here, restoration of integrity, calling out to our collective North Node about emotional integrity and speaking in harmony to all this energy here in Virgo. Each of these planets have spoken already to this Saturn. And Saturn has said, how am I going to restore integrity to my communication? That's Mercury. To what I'm attracted to, that's Venus. To what my instincts are and what my knee-jerk responses are, that's the Sun. To what I'm motivated to do about this, that's Mars. Saturn has had its conversation of, let me make it easy for you to do the right thing here, by either bringing that person into your world that you need to have a conversation with, wrapping up that contract that no longer serves you in the world of work, bringing this opportunity forward for you to say the right thing at the right time to the right person, for things to start unfolding. Saturn, these personal planets have all spoken to Saturn in a conversation of harmony, where all it would have taken is just a little bit of effort on our part for the right thing to start, the wheels to start getting in motion. And that's really the gift of this chart. That's what makes it interesting. It's because right alongside the ability to ignore it all is the ability to take some steps, and the ability to, and by ignoring it all, we could, run away in faith or run away in fault and self-blame. Both are ignoring the actuality of what needs to happen here. Both are ignoring that there's a gap, and it's neither all on us and none of it on us. It is neither one of those. This is a co-creation. And so, it's interesting because I didn't recognize this until I really started sitting with this chart. And now that I'm on my third recording here, let me not fall into fault. At the end of my run this morning, I had battery left. I was listening to my music. I was walking home, and my guides just killed the music. They killed my phone. I felt them. I was like, okay, you guys have something you want to say. What is it? And they said, yeah, we want you to tell them that whatever's happening now or not happening, whatever is disappointing or frustrating, it's not their fault. And I said, well, how is it not their fault? Aren't you always getting on me about how we're all creators here and reflections of God? And they said, yeah, you are creators, and it's not your fault that you can't see the way the last domino is going to fall when it circles round and loops back home. It's the nature of this realm and the limitations of being human that they didn't know what they didn't know. So, I had some choice words about that at the moment. I was like, that's not helpful. I'm not doing that. And they're like, write it down. So, now that I'm looking at the chart more directly, I get why they piped up with that, because emotions have the capacity to really run high during this full moon if you're not grounding your energy inside of your physical body. This particular full moon in Pisces, trining out to this north node, especially if you are a water sign or have any significant water placements, there is a capacity for emotions to really be hitting home right now. And for you to fall into the gap of, the experience of, wow, I really blew it. I really messed this. I really lost this opportunity. That gap of self-blame. There's also the opportunity to just kind of ignore what's going on. As I said earlier, with Jupiter squaring that Neptune and Mars opposite that Neptune, there's a real opportunity to miss the memo. And so I think what my guides were really trying to point out here is don't blame yourself, but also don't ignore the truth either. There are some difficult truths upon all of us at this time that it makes sense for us to just kind of take stock of, so that as we move forward during the latter part of this year, we are presenting and facilitating for ourselves the opportunity to make change once we get these personal planets and the partnership asteroid into the cardinal sign of Libra. Right now, it's about the recognition. As we get into Libra season, this is going to be about making the change in the way we talk to ourselves, deal with other people in partnerships and in our families and at work. That'll be the time for making the adjustments. Right now, this is just the time to give ourselves permission to see it for what it is, not worse than what it is, not better than what it is, just seeing it for what it is. That's Virgo. It's about discernment. It's about being able to see things as they are. That being said, interestingly, this discernment transit is happening for everyone in certain places of their chart. For some people I've spoken to, this is happening at their midheaven, and this is about discernment around work and home stuff. For other people, this is happening in their relationship house, and this is all about discernment as it comes to, their soulmate and their twin, and figuring out what they need to do next to honor the truth of their hearts and get in alignment. And still, for other people, this discernment transit is happening in a house having to do with finance and money. And it's about figuring out what they need to do with their money so that they can have a sustainable next step. If you'd like to have a look at that for yourself, definitely let me know. Email me at chrysalismoon@gmail.com. We'll take a look at your chart and where you're being asked to step up to the plate in your particular life to really lay some foundation for 2020, because that's what much of this really is. It's a lot of foundation laying for the way 2020 is about to go down. Because when we get to 2020, we're going to move out of the Capricorn Cancer eclipse cycle, which we've been in this year, which would have brought a lot of changes around work and family and home, into the Sag Gemini eclipse cycle, which is just going to bring a lot of change, period. Because as we talked about, mutable signs are all about change. They're all about transformation. And Gemini being the sign of the twins, Sagittarius, unity consciousness. Next year is going to be a significant year of transformation and change, and really being able to recognize the signs now and take the divine invitation for change now is going to make sure that once we get out into eclipse season, which is divine intervention season, things go a lot smoother for you. That being said, interestingly, for the divine feminine, there's something unique to her in the way that this is playing out. You can see here she's at 9 degrees of Virgo, and we can also see Uranus here at 6 degrees of Taurus. Uranus represents the divine coming down to sit and co-create with us in a harmonious flow of energy, one that's bringing ease into the conversation with the divine feminine, the partnership asteroid. There is in 2 earth signs, no less, Taurus, our values, money, beauty, and Virgo, discernment, details, health and well-being. What's happening here is the divine feminine is getting like a psychic body awakening to some degree. Your body may be starting to tell you things that you have not seen or understood or known before. With the divine coming to sit with the divine feminine in this way, there is a way that her physical body is showing her some truths about what it is she wants, what it is she needs, and how it is she's meant to create those things. This is very interesting, right? For those of you, and all of us have feminine and masculine energies within us, right? So anyone can feel this, but specifically those of you who resonate with being divine feminine, you're going to start to notice some clairsentient awakenings during this period of time, where your body is going to start telling you some truths about what's going on around you, but also about how you can hold more divinity inside of your physical body. I will say this is going to be a lot easier if you partake of some physical movement of some kind during the remainder of Virgo season and into Libra season. Yoga, massage, salt baths, running, walking, Tai Chi, anything that gets the lymph moving in the body, the joints moving in the body, allows the body to start metabolizing all of this divine energy coming through you. This is going to allow you to get into that ability to not make it worse than what it is, not make it better than what it is, but just be with how it is. So that when the time comes to start making changes, you neither need to climb down off of cloud 9 or climb up out of a self-built hellhole. You actually can just move forward with grace and move forward with ease. That's a very significant thing going on here. For the divine masculine, there's an interesting thing at play here, right? Because there's a lot of squares here. We've got Mars, his motivation, squaring his truth. And then we've also got him in square to Neptune, sitting in the very middle of the sign of truth. So while the awareness is there, the enlightenment is there, the aha moment has happened, the light bulb has gone off for him, it's almost like he's got his car going one way and his eyes on the prize 90 degrees off to his right or to his left. That is a very dangerous way to drive. What's being asked of the divine masculine here is to start bringing his motivation as he moves out into Libra season. And this will happen kind of naturally for many of them. But there's an aha about, wow, my feet are pointed in a very different direction than my truth. I'm going to need to make some changes. I'm going to need to make the effort to get in alignment here, which will naturally start to occur as Mars gets into a sextile position in the sign of Libra once we get into Libra season. Mars being motivation and drive. It's the engine that the divine masculine that we all work with. So if you're getting, some tension in your communication with your divine masculine, it's because he's in tension with himself. And most divine masculines that I have seen are actually in the process of wanting to transmute a lot of that stuff, and they don't want to get the ick of being an incongruent man all over you, or the shame, the hurt, the angst, the anxiety, the anger, the frustration, the disappointment. That's not really something they want to showcase and share with you. Happy to tell you the story once they've gotten on the other side in an intimate conversation, but in the middle of it, the last thing they're looking for is someone to be sending them a whole bunch of YouTube videos about how to fix their life. They know what they need to do. They're just taking the time and the space to be able to do it. So interestingly, I have noticed that in the charts that I've been reading for, even though the divine masculine and the divine feminine are sitting by transit in these squaring positions, meaning non-harmonious flow of energy, non-harmonious flow of communication at this time, there are some divine masculines where his transiting position is approaching a harmonious position of communication with their divine feminine. There are some divine feminines, Juno in their charts, their union chart, their natal chart, where their divine feminine energy is approaching a harmonious flow of communication with the divine masculine's position. This is why it's so important to know your own chart, know your own union chart, know your own natal chart, know your divine counterpart's chart, because there are, by transit, it looks like, oh, they're in a square, tension. Maybe we shouldn't be talking right now. We need space. However, for some people that I have spoken to, exact opposite is true. both of these are moving into positions of harmony with their divine counterpart in the natal chart, the natal union chart, or the natal divine counterparts chart, or their own chart. And they're going to stay that way for an extended period of time, especially as Juno moves here into Libra for a chunk of time. Or depending upon where it all lines up in your chart, Jupiter wraps up the year here in Sagittarius, then moves into Capricorn, which for some of you, if your Juno is in Capricorn, this is a really good building year, 2020, for the two of you, depending upon what your natal charts look like. So, this is a good time if you want to get a reading to have a look. What do our charts say about our communication? It's one thing to really, look at, what is happening generally and take that, but it's another thing to look at your own charts and start to get mastery over the lessons the two of you are learning and integrating, and give yourself that opportunity to know what's coming and how to navigate it by understanding the positions in your charts. One way to do that, I highly recommend, if you don't want to book a reading, get some astrology software. Most astrology softwares have a free version. And in that free version, you can start to understand the position of the divine feminine, Juno, on the day the two of you first met, and Jupiter on the day you two first met. That's the divine masculine. And then you can start to map by transit. Okay, where are these two now? Are they sitting in tension, or are they sitting in a harmonious flow of communication? You can do that. But if you'd like me to just look at it for you and tell you, you can also book a reading with me. I'm happy to do that for you. Just email me again at chrysalismoon@gmail.com. We'll set up time for October 1st through the 15th. The ability to pay for that time comes available this coming Monday. And then, those of you who do make payments, then you'll be able to book the following Monday for the first 2 weeks of October. And that's the only way to guarantee that we'll be able to spend some time on your chart the first 2 weeks in October. So that being said, definitely take some time for yourself to do some healing energy, do some healing work, especially in the realm of the physical body. That's going to be helpful for both divine masculine and divine feminine. Hugely helpful in terms of making sure that you're able to integrate the energies of this time without being too hard on yourself or overly optimistic, because the moment for discernment is now, because the moment of action is coming up quite quickly. Thank you for watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing. If this is something that has resonated with you, I definitely ask that you give the video a thumbs up so it can get circulated and find its way to people who need it. And I look forward to seeing what resonated for you in the comments.